want to show that we're the sponsors. It's time to start, enjoy the show. Don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show. That we're the sponsors. It's time to start, enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. If that's not going to get you in the Friday mood, then nothing is. Welcome along into Betting Weekly Live. I'm Nigel, Seeley, looking ahead, previewing all the big action on the sporting weekend and this evening. I'm delighted to join me for his second Betting Weekly Live. It's our NFL expert, it's Doug Kezirian. Doug, good afternoon to you, or good morning where you are stateside.
Yeah, good to be with you. Obviously an exciting time of year, but it's also a sad time of year, knowing the end is near in the NFL. So I always, starting like last weekend, I start to get mixed emotions because as fun as it is with the stakes so high, I do know we only have a few games left.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that because sometimes after a long season, I'm sort of quite happy because it depends if I've won or lost in the season. If I've had a good winning season, it's like, okay, I can have a holiday now. It's fantastic. Right. So if I've had a losing season or I've had a bad run, I want to get back in it straight away. So it's quite interesting to me because after long seasons, I quite like the break.
I don't, it's not like I go back and watch old film for no reason, right?
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it so much. And football, and NFL is such they call it, baseball is America's pastime. NFL is America's passion. So we love our American football in that regard. But yeah, I will enjoy being able to sleep a little bit more here and there.
And now, the last time you were on, Doug, we cashed it. We had a brilliant, I think with 3 out of the 4 bets we gave on the tournament, on the matches, 1 on the Super Bowl, on the NFL card. We had a great week on the soccer as well. And we also had a couple of tennis winners as well. So you're a good omen to the show. Lots of winners. And hopefully this weekend we can back that up with some more winners on your second appearance. So I know you've done some groundwork. And look at a bit later on the show, you're going to go through the NFL matches championship weekend, looking in detail on the 2 matches. And also there's a couple of other bets that have caught your eye on the Bet Rivers website.
Yeah, look, it's as I like to say, all tickets cash the same, right? So you can have a bet on the biggest NFL game or a small prop bet in the NBA or something like that. The money's green if you cash it here in the States. So I'm all for finding winners wherever they are, not forcing them just on the biggest games as well.
That's a very good one. Don't. My dad used to say to me, "Don't go looking for the winners. Let the winners go looking for you." That's a very good piece of advice. Very good piece of advice. Well, let's start off. Before we go, there was one other thing I was going to say to you. We're in the WhatsApp group, and one of our contributors who's on the show, Simon Holden, playing golf, puts up a picture. Bronco Eddie, thousands of miles away, is a former flatmate of yours.
Yeah, out here in Las Vegas, small world, right? So, I got a message earlier in the day as well on LinkedIn, I believe it was, saying, "Hey, I golfed with a guy who's working on one of your podcasts." So that really is fun to have, friends and colleagues and, the network all around the globe.
Yep, it's fun. It's also quite scary. It's also quite scary. Let's move on to the action. Let's have a look at some of the bets with Bet Rivers. Look at the sporting action tonight. Not really much in the way of soccer. Obviously, this is a US sports show on the Friday, looking ahead to the big match of the weekend. But we have a few matches across Europe. We're going to start with the Championship in England, where Sheffield United host Hull. Sheffield United, it's second in the Championship table, may have dropped down to third after the weekend, but they're right in the promotion contention. They're minus 177 to beat Hull, who are plus 420. This match may be affected by the high winds. The weather over across in the UK has been really bad, and this match up in the Yorkshire area may be affected by the winds there. A couple of little bits of information for you. The last five matches between these two sides, Sheffield United haven't conceded, so Hull haven't scored in their last 5 matches against Hull, and they haven't won this match since back in 2010. So 15 matches since they won at Sheffield United. They did win in 2015, but Sheffield United have got a very, very good record against Hull. If you've got a bet on this match or an angle on this match, put it in the chat. Let us know what you think. League Two, if we go further down the English pyramid. We have Swindon up against Newport. Newport are plus 240. Swindon have been very, very heavily bet today across the boards. Opened up plus 120, now down to plus 102. Probably not a lot of handle, and probably not a match that would really be of high significance to stateside bettors. It's the lowest level of English League football. But Swindon are a heavy bet side, and a lot of shrewd bettors over here want to be betting Swindon at plus 102. So if you want to put them in a parlay, or you may want to bet them at plus 102, Swindon could be a thing for you. Moving across to France, where the weather's a little bit better. Saint-Etienne, plus 290. They travel to Auxerre. Saint-Etienne have got a new manager, changed their fortunes around a little bit. I know Steve Wyss, our European expert, is quite keen on Saint-Etienne here to get something from this match, maybe in the money line or perhaps with the handicap start or the draw no bet. But Saint-Etienne are plus 290, and they're the only three matches across England and France. And then we have a couple of other matches in Germany, Italy, and over in Spain. In Germany, we have a goal fest up here. There, 3.5 goals. The line Wolfsburg against Holstein Kiel. Holstein Kiel always reminds me of a lager. It sounds like a nice German lager, a nice pint of Holstein Kiel. I don't expect it to be a football team, but Holstein Kiel. 3.5 goals is the line there. Torino against Cagliari, one of the most competitive matches on the card. Torino is plus 114, Cagliari is plus 265. The tie is plus 210. And over in Spain, Las Palmas play Osasuna, plus 145. Las Palmas, Osasuna is plus 205. Not really much money around on those matches. There isn't any Premier League matches. There isn't any big matches across in the UK. And on the back of what's been a very busy midweek, people are keeping their powder quite dry to the weekend. If you want to follow the Premier League picks, Betting Weekly Premier League is out now, and all the best bets across Europe are also available on Betting Weekly Extra Time. But if you do have a bet, anything you like, put it into the chat. I'll read them out. But for me, Sheffield United to win to 0 would be a bet against Hull. Quite like Swindon to get the job done at Newport, but the line has changed. Plus 120 earlier in the day, plus 102 now is a price that you probably wouldn't have bet. Saint-Etienne to get something against Auxerre, and Wolfsburg, Holstein Kiel, you would expect goals, but the goal line is very heavy at 3.5. Now, what we've come here for is the American sports action. It's championship weekend, and before we look at the outright market, just how big a weekend is this? I mean, you know, sometimes when you get the best four sides, the handle isn't so big. You know, you tend to find regular weeks are much bigger. You know, how does this position itself in terms of turnover in America and sort of public excitement?
Well, the Super Bowl itself is the biggest betting day of the year in the States. And then this round can be huge as well. It's back-to-back games. But to your point, there's a little fatigue that sits in as well. And we saw that sometimes we see that. I think last weekend is really big, right? You have monster games both days, and there's still momentum from the previous weekend and things like that. But people find ways to bet. There's a lot of prop bets now. I mean, the volume of options has just expanded so much that the handle will be seriously huge. A lot depends on the line, and I think we have two good conducive lines to high volume. Just they're under 7 points. High profile players. You have a Cinderella team, a long shot team in the Washington Commanders. So it's got a little bit of everything, and some sports storylines with a team like the Buffalo Bills trying to finally get over the hump.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bet Rivers website now. 649 different markets available on these matches, and more to be added in the build-up to the big matches on Sunday. And let's look at the outright market before we break each individual match down. And the last time he was on, I think you gave a very good word for Buffalo Bills. I'm thinking they're around about 6-1 or something like that. And also Washington Commanders, you gave a good word for them. Last week we saw a shock with Detroit, the tournament favourites getting beat. Philadelphia Eagles have now replaced them because obviously just on paper they have the easiest route to the Super Bowl. But Kansas City Chiefs know how to do it. They know how to win the Super Bowl. They have the quarterback who turns up at the big games. Everyone I speak to stateside, everyone I spoke to this week, they all want the Kansas City Chiefs. They want someone different. Is that how you're feeling, or do you think that the experience they have will see them through?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for the Buffalo Bills. That's a franchise that has never won it. They have some misery from the 90s, losing 3 straight Super Bowls, one on a heartache, missed field goal at the buzzer, and then also getting crushed by the Dallas Cowboys. So this is a franchise that has a very, very, very loyal fan base, the gold standard of fan bases, if you will. And, we all kind of get sick of things sometimes like that. Now, as a bettor, you try to remove yourself from that, right? You really try to assess what's going to happen, things like that. But yeah, there's a little fatigue with the Chiefs, and I think people do want new blood with the Buffalo Bills there.
Yeah, but how that's that big game experience though. It doesn't matter what sport it is. If you're you're a tennis player, golfer going down the 17th, knowing that you've won 3 majors, it's got to be something, isn't it? Do you think is that factored into the price here, or it's not really factored into the betting odds?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the betting market is shaped by math modelers, right? They do projections and things like that. And obviously performance in big games and games in the clutch, so to speak, is part of the stats. But there is an element where players make plays in certain circumstances where the modelers cannot sort of project. And I know a lot of guys who always had trouble with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady because they always found ways that maybe the projections didn't really reflect going into the game. I do think as a bettor, when you see a team like Kansas City that wins 1-score games and wants to just eke out wins, but they're typically laying a lot of points like they were last week, you always want your wager to be aligned with what the team wants, right? If you're betting on them just to win the game, that's good because that's all they're trying to do. So in this case, we do have a point spread in the AFC with 1.5 or 2, where that is basically aligned with what the Chiefs are trying to do. They weren't good as a multiple score favorite, although last week they won by 9, and mostly it was 8.5, 8 across the market. So in this specific game, maybe the Chiefs are good against the spread because they're 16-1 this year, including the playoffs, where with Patrick Mahomes starting. So I'd be careful saying, "Oh, this is a team that doesn't cover," when the point spread is so low.
I was reading somewhere today that if he gets to the Super Bowls, he's his 5th Super Bowl, and there's only 2 other quarterbacks who got to 2 Super Bowls, and he's only 29, so he could
Right.
he could go on and break all kinds of records, Patrick Mahomes. Let's have a look at some comments before we look at the lines. We have Eagles will win and cover, says Reese Conrad. Byron Morrow says not so sure about the cover, but he does believe they will win. Kingston said our wages on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes to win Super Bowl MVP. I hate the cheating Chiefs, but I may as well make money off them. Refs won't let Bills win. Lots of other stuff here. Commanders lost best offensive lineman, and Eagles Jalen Cards will wreak havoc in the run and pass game. Cosme loss does hurt them, agree, says Byron again. And our producer Troy says the Chiefs are at 8-10 against the spread this season, but are 4-0 against the spread of favourites of 3 or less points from producer Troy. Before we look at the Chiefs matches, let's have a look at the NFC Championship game. And these are the odds currently live with Bet Rivers. Philadelphia Eagles are the heavy favourites on the money line at -295. The Commanders are +230, and the point spread is 6, with the total points at 47.5. What do you think about these odds, Doug?
So I think this is a tough game to handicap. Washington, with their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, they basically have Magic Johnson. I mean, the guy was Magic back in the day, won an NBA title as a rookie. And the game just looks so easy for Daniels. He's so smooth as a runner. The offense has weapons. They've been so dynamic, and they put such pressure on opposing defenses. And when you're a rookie, you're allowed to get better, right? We forget that. So how he was at the beginning of the season versus how he is now, very night and day. And he was a quote-unquote veteran quarterback in college. So he has a lot of reps, more so than most other rookies that come into the league. And with his dual threat and his ability to run, again, just puts such pressure on defenses. I do think the offensive line injury is going to matter. I do think that the Eagles' defensive front, now they played twice in the regular season. They split the meetings, but the second one, Philly quarterback Jalen Hurts got hurt early in the game, and that's enabled kind of Washington to hang around and despite turnovers and win the game, in my opinion. I think the Eagles find a way to win, and I do think there's a scenario where they cover. So I'm a little apprehensive about this Cinderella run of Washington, but I don't want to lay the 6 because Jalen Hurts is banged up. He got hurt in last week's game. He was visibly hurt, couldn't throw the ball. And I just have a lot of apprehension because even if he says that he's 100%, great. But he could get hurt mid-game or first quarter, second quarter. Now, I'm not referring to the concussion he had in the last meeting against Washington. I'm talking about last week where he took a hit because he's a very physical player and they do a lot of design runs and things like that. So I'm just really a little gun shy getting involved in this game for that reason. I think the weather's going to play a role and things along those lines. So just because I want some action or whatever, I think that's a decent play. I do like a teaser with the Philadelphia Eagles taking them down to even or something like that. I just feel they're going to win the game and advance to the Super Bowl. But by no means do I think this is an excellent bet or things like that. I would not be shocked if Washington found a way to win the game. But I do think people are portraying them a little better than they were going into last week, just because Detroit was so banged up defensively and things broke right for the Commanders. Give them all the credit in the world, but Washington still has a weak defense, and I think Philly has a lot of weapons.
I'll give you some money lines and the spreads. 65% of the money line and 57% of the tickets are on the Eagles. On the spread, 66% of the money and 68% on the Commanders. So they're saying that the Eagles will win, but they might not necessarily cover. Over and under, 81% of the money and 81% of the tickets on over. That's the kind of thing you would expect, wouldn't it? You know, you expect people to bet the favorite on the money line, but you expect most of the money to be on the dog, on the spread. And, you know, everyone wants to see an over. They don't want to be seeing games which are under, which obviously sees the bet. That's one of the reasons why I always bet unders, you know, sometimes not successfully, but sometimes I'll give you some notable wagers on the match. $23,000 so far with Bet Rivers on the Commanders +6, 15,000 on the Eagles on the money line, which goes to show that theory. You know, not everyone is necessarily believing that the Commanders will cover the spread. -250, 12,200 on Commanders over 20.5 points, and Barkley touchdown at +175, and another 10,000 on the Commanders, this time on the money line at +220. There are some house specials on the match, which I'll get back to. I'm going to look at some props. These are the touchdown scorers and the anytime. Do you play these kind of props? I mean, I know we have a guy here who covers this, Neil Channing. He thinks sometimes that there is good value on these anytime touchdown scorers compared to the first touchdown scorer, and especially my strategy in Premier League football is that I like to bet an anytime goal scorer rather than a first goal scorer. Is it something that you look at, Doug?
Absolutely. Look, I do understand the apprehension because this is a one-way betting market, and I don't want to insult any listeners, but I also enjoy explaining things so people can evolve as a bettor, not just try to find some winners and breadcrumbing. But you can't bet no first touchdown for Jaden Daniels. You can only bet yes, he scores the first touchdown on the ground. So when these are one-way betting markets as opposed to a point spread, which is two ways, right? You can bet the favorite or the underdog. There's typically not tons of value because there's a built-in hold percentage for the house, and very rarely is there going to be opportunity to catch these odds makers off guard. And not only are you catching odds makers off guard, you're catching other bettors because other bettors will have not made certain bets, and you want to catch them off guard. But excuse me. So sometimes there is opportunity. For example, the other day, Brian Robinson Jr. was +185 for anytime touchdown. He's their main back. I know Austin Eckler's back for Washington, but the defenses will be keying on Daniels. Robinson is their guy. I know a really sharp bettor is betting Robinson's prop bet of over rushing yards. I think Robinson at 155 has decent value for an anytime touchdown. I would not lay the -250 for Saquon Barkley. Like, what do you gain in that, right? Do you really want to lay 250? And then Jalen Hurts is what we call in the fantasy sports world the vulture around the goal line. They get to the 1 yard line, and Saquon has to give up the touchdown to the quarterback tush push to the quarterback sneak. So I would not bet certain guys. Now, AJ Brown is someone I'm actually fading a little bit this weekend, so I would not bet his touchdown. So if you're fading certain guys, like maybe Dallas Goedert +1400 does have some value in that regard. So there are opportunities, but again, it's case by case, as is usually the case in betting.
No surprise, the most popular prop is Barkley anytime goal scorer, but he is minus 250. If you look at some house specials, Barkley and Robinson Jr. each to record 5+ rushing yards in all 4 quarters is plus 450. Each team to score 1+ rushing yard touchdown and 1+ passing touchdown is plus 210. Eagles to score in all 4 quarters plus 155. And Barkley and Daniels to combine for 200+ rushing yards and 1 rush yard touchdown at plus 150. You can get all those available on the BetRivers website or on the app. And our producer Troy has given me some game trends, which I think are quite interesting. 8 of the Eagles' last 10 postseason games have gone under the total points line. In each of the Eagles' last 5 games, the first score has been an Eagles touchdown. You can find that market on the website and the app as well. And the Commanders have covered the spread in 4 straight games against teams with a winning record. So I'm going to ask you one bet. What's the play? What's the big play? Our only play for this one here for the NFC Championship.
So it's funny. The gentleman whose comment just came up on the screen, I think that's my favorite play, A.J. Brown. So Byron and I are seeing eye to eye. I like A.J. Brown under 60.5 receiving yards. Now, he had big games in the 2 previous meetings against Washington, but I do think it's ground and pound is the game plan. And I think Jalen Hurts is limited with his injuries. And Brown, I don't know how much value I want to put in this, but it can't help. He said after the game, what was it like playing in the snow, right? The second half was, he goes, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. He was pretty miserable. I think he only had 1 catch. It was a big one, though. It was on 4th down for possession. So I don't think he's going to be able to stretch the field because I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be able to pass downfield and things along those lines. Maybe he's great and healthy and Washington stacks the box and opens up the passing game. Fine. So be it. I'll lose. But 60.5 is a big number. So I'll go with that as my favorite play, but not a major play at all in general.
Not a major play, but there is a prop for you to get involved in. I'm looking at some of the questions, the answers. Not as the real Brendan King said. Nigel said Barkley anytime goal scorer. I apologise for that. This isn't football, Nigel. It's football, Nigel. I think there's a former England player called Ross Barkley who played for, and I was thinking of him. So I apologise for that. AJ, is there a prop for how many times they show AJ Brown reading his book? What would you be the over and under on that one if you had a line?
Yeah, his book's become the Taylor Swift of the NFC, right? So it's his book is the popular cutaway, as we call in the TV business, and then Taylor Swift, obviously, in attendance for the AFC Championship game. Yeah,
well, that's what we're going to come on to now, the AFC Championship game, and Taylor Swift. The time that they cut back to her watching this match will be very, very high on the spread if you want to do that. But this is a real intriguing betting heat, and obviously this is the one where you've got the team that has never got to a Super Bowl against the team who have been the Super Bowl kings in recent years. And the Kings, Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champions, are minus 134 on the money line. The Buffalo Bills are plus 110. The spread is very close. It's 2, and the total points are 48. Looking at the lines, money line, 53% of the money and 53% of the tickets are on the Bills. So the Bills are getting more support than Kansas City. The spread, 70% of the money and 67% on tickets are again on the Bills. And unsurprisingly, over is attracting the money, 65% of money and 75% of the tickets are on the over 48. So the market here, the BetRivers betting public, is it a public play? Is this a professional play? But the market seems to want to be with the Bills. What do you think about that?
It makes sense. There's new blood. Now, the Bills won the regular season meeting pretty convincingly, gave Kansas City its only regular season loss with Patrick Mahomes starting. I just think the Bills in a teaser is the best play in my eyes. Now, to play devil's advocate, someone would say, yeah, no kidding. You get to move the point spread 6 points. So, of course, you're going to like that a lot. But I certainly think Buffalo has the goods. And Kansas City tends to play with its food a little too often. They got fortunate last week that Houston made some big bonehead mistakes. They made the decision to kick a 55-yarder in the wind. Special teams was poor. I just think the Chiefs are hanging on by a thread. They're finding ways to win, but they're typically not the better team. I do believe Buffalo is live as an underdog here to win at Arrowhead, but it's tough to take them just +2 given Kansas City's ability to make plays and deliver in the clutch. And like the gentleman in the chat said earlier, they're 4-0 against the spread. when the point spread's 3 points or less. So I really, really think Kansas City keeps this close. Sorry, Buffalo keeps this close within one score or wins. So I think it's a really smart play to tease it up from 2 to 8. Now the question is, what do you tease it with? That's why I mentioned the Eagles. I do think they win the game. So that's how I would play the sides in this game.
I'll give you some notable bets. $21,300 on under 50.5 points at -139, laid by Bet Rivers. 11,000 on the Chiefs, -1.5. So there's a Chief fan somewhere, -112. 10,900 on over 48.5, and 10,000 on the Bills +2. So looking at that, that's a perfect book for Bet Rivers there. You know, you've got two-way action. Looks like a real proper match is going to see real two-way action. Where do you think the public money is going to come for Buffalo? But do you think that the wise money, the sharp money, might come for the proven team as we're approaching to the match start?
Well, typically with a handle this big, when there's big playoff games, the sharp money, the wise guy money arrives during the week. We don't have to wait till Sunday. So the Eagles were already bet up from 4.5 or 5. And then in terms of the Kansas City, there's slight money that came in on the Chiefs. I think they're maybe waiting for the 3 as on the underdog, but that's not arriving. I think sharp bettors they're a little sick of getting beat up by the Chiefs, right? They've been betting against them a lot, and Mahomes has covered 4 straight starts. So he closed the regular season with 3 straight wins and covers. Kansas City essentially covered last weekend. So I don't think we're going to see sharp money get involved. Last week we saw the pros get involved and move the favorite from Buffalo -1 to Baltimore -1 in that high-profile matchup Sunday evening. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of action between now and then that's going to move the market. I think the public is going to be, for the most part, on Buffalo, but I don't think we're going to see any significant involvement within the sharp money.
Let's have a look at some player bets. We've got a touchdown scorer, anytime scorer. Again, this is the line that we put up. Again, there's over 649 different markets available on the Bet Rivers website. I'll just give you some half specials. Shakir and Kelsey each to record 1 or more receptions in all 4 quarters, $6. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes each to record 30+ pass yards in all 4 quarters is 3-1. Each team to score 1 rushing touchdown and 1 passing touchdown is +260. And the most popular props are Josh Allen anytime touchdown at -120, -125. And Josh, that has been the most popular prop and the most popular wagered prop. The Buffalo Bills player to get a touchdown in the match at -125. Would you concur with that, or would you think that that's a little bit too skinny for you to get involved in?
It's not too skinny. Allen finds a way. I think it's a little bit, we talked about that versus Philadelphia quarterback Jalen Hurts is his anytime touchdown. I think it's solid. Allen calls his own number. They run quarterback power, quarterback run sweep. Often he sneaks it as well. I'm not against the -125 at all. I think, again, you're not going to get rich with something like that, but if you're looking to parlay and things like that, I think there's decent value. I would prefer one of the bigger payouts because that's just more fun, and I know it's more fun for a lot of our viewers here. But it's not the worst bet. I'm not making it, but it's not the worst bet either.
I'll give you some game trends, again, courtesy of our producer, Troy. Each of the Bills' last 4 road games have gone over the total points line. There's one big bet we've got on the over points line, haven't we? The Chiefs have covered the spread in 6 of their last 7 postseason games, and the Chiefs have won 11 straight home games. When it comes down to these big matches, the Chiefs know how to get it done. And will it come down to that, or will it come down to a bit of history with the Buffalo Bills? So before we leave the championship matches aside, on Monday morning, who's going to be the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, Doug?
I think it's going to be the Chiefs and the Eagles. I think we're going to have a rematch of a Super Bowl from a couple years ago. And I think the Chiefs will be small favorites. I think it's going to be under 3. I think they'll be about 1.5. I think that'll be the spread for the Super Bowl in New Orleans. The Bills will be valiant, but Patrick Mahomes is 3-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs, while they are 4-4 overall against each other in the 8 previous meetings. I do think Kansas City's defense will be the difference. That's been their calling card all year, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. I'll say this, though. You talk about futures and some of the best bets. I think there's a really good one on the betting board right now at Bet Rivers. It's Travis Kelce to be the Super Bowl MVP at plus 3,500. If you compare it, the Chiefs are only plus 210 to win it all, right? And they're going to be favored if they win this game. But the drop off, usually it doesn't make sense to bet anyone but the quarterback to win the Super Bowl MVP of the winning team. But Kelce, just given what he's doing in the playoffs and how much he has sort of paced himself during the regular season, he could have a monster effort. And Mahomes has put up some pedestrian numbers, so he could easily have 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns max in a Super Bowl win, and both of them going to Kelce, or Kelce could have a big day, 90-something yards, and that be enough to offset the deference that a quarterback gets. So 35-1 plus 3,500. I do like Kelce. I think it's worth a little sprinkle because I think there is line value, and that will close obviously way lower if the Chiefs advance.
That sounds like a bet for me. Kelce to be the MVP in the Super Bowl, 35-1. Obviously, we're taking the chance that they get there, but if they get there, it'll probably be half the price of that. Byron Murrell said, look at headline, it's Chiefs minus 1.5. You nailed it, Doug. He's also got Shakiri at plus 210 is a good look. Peter Carroll to the Raiders just in as well. Before we leave the American sports to one side for this weekend, I know you've been looking through the Bet Rivers website then looking ahead to the action of the weekend, and you found another little wager that you quite like the look of for the weekend.
Yeah, and it's overseas as well. So the NBA right now is in Paris to increase promotion and visibility and things like that. Victor Wembanyama is the rising star, 21-year-old for the San Antonio Spurs, who was the number 1 pick 2 years ago. And the Spurs and the Pacers played yesterday, and they're going to play a second time tomorrow. And there's prop bets, as we all know. So with Wembanyama, he is 7'3" and has a bigger wingspan, and he's huge favorite, minus 600 or so, to win the NBA Defensive Player of the Year. And what the Spurs do on defense is have Wembanyama, this unicorn, they like to call it, man the paint and just cover ground. So anybody driving to the basket, Wembanyama's there. Anybody who beats their defender or cutters and stuff, he just protects the rim and mans the paint. Well, what happens is in the NBA now, there's so many 3-pointers. Some of these big men, including Wembanyama on offense, can shoot 3-pointers. Okay. So Wembanyama's opposing center in the last handful of games, if they're a shooting center, which most of them are, they've been attempting crazy amounts because they're wide open on the perimeter. The Spurs structure their defense. So Wembanyama's in the center and he closes out on his defender when he gets the ball, but it's a casual closeout. So the guys who he's facing have 10 3-point attempts, 7 3-point attempts, way more than they average during the year against other teams. So on yesterday, Miles Turner, the starting center for the Pacers, had 8 3-point attempts. He only averages 5. So he had 3 more than he normally does. But the market and the props don't adjust accordingly. So his prop was still 1.5, just like it is every game. Now he made 2 of 8, but I watched the game. He was wide open. It was new. It's a new gym. They're overseas, jet lag. I think he's going to be more adjusted to the time zone and everything, having traveled overseas. And the prop is still going to be 1.5. I think it's an absolute banger. I love over 1.5 because the Spurs defensively are not going to give up the positives of having Wembanyama in the paint and have him guard the passing lanes on the perimeter and 30 feet out. They'd rather just have him close out because he is still 7'3". So I think it's just a great bet. And all you can ask for in these situations is higher volume than normal. So the fact that he had 8 attempts in the previous game, and all the previous games when Wembanyama is facing a center who can stretch the defense, it's a lot of attempts. So I think over 1.5, once it gets posted, is a really strong play.
Yep. So that's we got it all covered. Every sport you got covered here for the weekend, all over the globe. Not only across America, Paris. We got all the football across Europe and all the action as well across in Australia, where we got the tennis as well. We're going to come on to the tennis next. But before we go on to the tennis next, Mahinda said, any value in taking the Eagles Chiefs double straight up on your predictions, Doug? That plays +1 6 to 4 is obviously a fractional price over here, but American odds +150. Do you think that's any value in that?
So that's a money line parlay, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So I don't love it. I prefer the teaser option of +7.5 for the Chiefs and then Eagles to win the game. Sorry, gosh, I keep messing that up. +7.5 for the Bills. I just think it's a stronger play because I do think it's a coin flip game. But you can't go wrong needing Patrick Mahomes to win a playoff game. I certainly can't fault you for that. And if you like the live wagering and things like that, the early game is the Eagles game. So if they win, you have some room to play with in in-game wagering. You can play out of it with the money line. You can play the points. So it does set you up because sometimes these games kick off at the same time, but that's not the case here. They're back to back. So if you get the first leg home, the Eagles winning the game, advancing, then you have some fun. You can play around with some things in the next game if you get a little uneasy with the Chiefs play.
Hopefully that answers your question there. And that's pretty it from the football. But have you been watching the tennis, Doug, over in Australia? Tennis one of your kind of things?
Not a ton. I'm just so immersed in basketball and football and everything, and then my regular duties of on air. I try to stick to my specific lanes, my wheelhouse, and I enjoy it. No doubt, I enjoy it. But there's just only so many hours in the day.
Well, fortunately for the people who are watching, I've been covering the tennis this week over in Melbourne. I haven't had much sleepers this week. I've been doing the tennis. I've been up, but so we've reached the finals in the men's and the women's. And this evening, stateside, we have the final of the women's tournament where we have the American Madison Keys up against Arina Zabalenka, the number 1 seed. Now, if you're looking at betting, we're talking about players or teams that are rising to the top. You're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, Arina Zabalenka is the top women's player in the world. It's her 3rd consecutive Australian Open, and she's going to take some serious stopping against Madison Keys. -315 is the price on the money line with Bet Rivers for Zabalenka. +255 is Keys. The spread is 4.5, and the total here is 21.5. They've met 5 times previously, these two, and Zabalenka has won 4 of the 5 times. They met in a major at the US Open in 2023, where incredibly Madison Keys took the first set 6-love, and then Sabalenka came back and won 7-6, so 7-6, 7-6. So although they won, she won the match, she didn't cover the spread. Wimbledon, they met in 2023 as well, and Sabalenka won 6-2, 6-4, and they also met last year in Beijing, where Sabalenka won 6-4, 6-3. I can't see anything other than an easy win for Sabalenka, unfortunately, for American tennis fans. And the reason why that is because Madison Keys come through that epic semi-final against Iga Swiatek that went on all the way to a tiebreak in that final set. It was an incredible game, which would have taken out a lot out of her physically and mentally as well. And Sabalenka just had a breeze through against Paula Badosa 6-4, 6-2 in a match where she was 2-0 down in the first set as well. She's on a different level at the moment. And I think where we've got to look at is where we can find value to get with Sabalenka. And I think the value here is pretty straightforward. I think Sabalenka wins it 2-0 at -129. I just don't give her any hope at all, really, Madison Keys. I think if she had a lesser struggle against Iga Swiatek, and to be fair, Madison Keys is a player that's had temperament problems before. She famously fell apart in the US Open final a few years back, where she played Sloane Stephens, where she was a heavy favourite. And she's had problems before. And I think the realisation of getting to an Australian Open where she never really expected to do so and to find the number 1 seed will be too much for her. So I think Madison Keys here at -129 will cover that and win 2-0. Rory Giovanni will have a pick on our Instagram page, and make sure you follow that at Because We Win on Instagram and keep abreast of all the information. The newsletter that we do every week is on great form. And on the newsletter, I gave 8-1 Alexander Zverev to win the Australian Open, and he's through to the final to play Yannick Sinner. -278 is the price for Yannick Sinner, +225 for Alexander Zverev. 4.5 is the spread. And if you have taken my advice and backed Alexander Zverev at +225, I always say hedging is for gardens And on this occasion, I agree, because I think he's got a great chance. Yannick Sinner was hobbling about injured. He was all over the place. He didn't play well in his last match against Ben Shelton. He looked all over the place. He's had problems with fatigue before. This is certain to be a long match, as you can see by the total there at 39.5. Zverev fresh. He only had to play one set because Novak Djokovic retired. And he holds a 4-2 winning head-to-head against the world number one. So if you are holding a nice price at 8-1 about Alexander Zverev, my advice is keep it. Don't hedge. No point in hedging. Just enjoy it. We'll have some fun in the final, and we got a decent bet. But tomorrow I'll be joined by Sean Calvert, who will give a proper breakdown of this match, and Sean might have a very different opinion to me on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, which will be live tomorrow, and you'll be able to get that if you subscribe to the YouTube channel Betting Weekly Studios. As I said before, please subscribe to the newsletter Betting Weekly Studios. Go there, put in your email address, and you'll get the newsletter every Monday, because on Wednesday there is an exclusive show, a Champions League betcast with myself and Steve Wiss, which is only available to newsletter subscribers. A couple of questions here. Dan Shaw says Sinner has never won a match in his career that has gone beyond 3 hours, 50 minutes. Loves Vera 3-2 at 750 there. Yes, totally agree with that. And he's had it fairly easy route to the final, and he's still struggling with his injuries. There's the link for the newsletter. Just to let you know, the Friday night live streams on Bet Rivers app. Sheffield United against Hull in the Championship is live streamed. Also, all the soccer action in Spain in the Serie B, and in Auxerre against Saint-Etienne in the French League 1, where a lot of you quite like Saint-Etienne to get something from that match. I know Steve Wish is very keen on the visitors as well. Oh, it's a massive week, massive weekend, loads of action all across the globe, but the big action is in the Championship NFL games. And who better than we could have had to preview them for us in the last 45 minutes or so for Doug Kezirian. Doug, thank you very much for your time, as always. Be very careful. We might have to bump into a few more of your flatmates over the next week or so, playing various golf courses here across Europe. But good luck with your wagers, whatever you're doing. Good luck with the bets. Please remember to gamble responsibly. And we're back on Betting Weekly Live on Monday next week for another full week of betting action, including that Wednesday live betcast, which is only available to newsletter subscribers. Good luck with your bets. Take care, and we'll speak to you all on Monday.